Hello everyone, my name is Scott Pursner and I'm the Director of International Affairs for the Taiwan Wild Bird Federation. Today I'm going to discuss developing Taiwan's first national bird report. Before I begin though, I just wanted to say thank you to the IOU for allowing me to do this presentation today at the IO Congress 2022, and also I wanted to recognize that the compilation of the state of Taiwan's birds was not done by the TWBF alone. It was actually done in collaboration with the Taiwan Endemic Species Research Institute. So that being said, let us continue. So first, I wanted to discuss a little bit about my organization, the Taiwan Wild Bird Federation. We were founded in 1988, and our purpose is birdwatching, research, and conservation. We are an NGO, so we're an independent organization, and we are the umbrella group for 21 different conservation and ecology-related organizations in Taiwan. So actually, we are Taiwan's largest bird conservation organization. And so now I'd like to just share with you a little bit about our partners. So here you can see the logos of the TWBF's partners. Just about every city and county in Taiwan has a bird society or organization that is one of our member groups. And they're engaged in everything from bird walks to conservation initiatives trying to protect birds and their habitats, and we are very happy to support such efforts. So speaking of birds and their habitats, let's get to know Taiwan a little bit. So when most people hear about Taiwan, they actually think of Taiwan proper, which is Taiwan Island. But in fact, Taiwan is a country made up of different islands. So you've got Taiwan proper, then you also have the Matsu Archipelago, the Kinmen Islands, Penghu Archipelago, and then Dongsha Atoll, which is actually in the South China Sea. And then if you look at the lower left-hand corner there, you could see Taiwan's location along the East Asia-Australasian Flyway. It's this central location that makes Taiwan a very important place along the flyway for migratory birds as a stopover, and also for certain migratory birds as a wintering ground. So now, what is a state of bird report? Well, I'm glad you asked. Birds are important indicators of the health of habitats, ecosystems, and the general soundness of local environments. One of the reasons for this is because birds are easier to monitor than other groups. And so a bird report and looking at how they're doing and how their habitats are doing kind of serves as a bit of an early warning mechanism about environmental degradation. Now, for us, while we were creating this here in Taiwan, we consulted a number of different national bird reports from all over the world. We looked at bird reports from the UK, from the US, from Australia, from the Philippines, from India, amongst others. Now, what are the origins of Taiwan's own national bird report? Well, for that, we have to go back to 2013. It was in that year that there was a first meeting held between various stakeholders concerned about biodiversity conservation in Taiwan. These participants included representatives of government, academia, the NGO sector, and what they decided was that they wanted to create a national report discussing bird monitoring. Now, this group, which would later become known as the State of Taiwan's Birds Partnership, wanted to also use conservation status data as the basis. Now, this was a new idea in Taiwan. However, this was actually something that was being actively promoted internationally, because it was around this time also that the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity required that participants create national reports on their biodiversity status. This was known by representatives of the conservation and research community here. So they wanted to create this kind of a report also to get in line with what the UNCBD was actively promoting. Another aspect to the state of Taiwan's birds which can't be overstated is the role that citizen science and open data played in its creation. A lot of information which was used in the final publication of the State of Taiwan Birds came from citizen science collected data on eBird Taiwan. Now, eBird Taiwan is the traditional Chinese language portal for eBird, and it came out in 2015, currently managed by the TWBF and TESRI. Now, prior to eBird Taiwan, though, you had the TWBF's bird record database. That came out in the mid-1990s. However, people had submitted checklists that were entered into this database from as early on as the 1970s. So you had a wealth of information dating back many, many years that were contributing to the state of Taiwan's birds. And you could just see the numbers here. 3,900 people contributed to the records of the report, and that included 472,000 completed checklists on eBird. Taiwan currently ranks number 7 in the world on eBird for completed checklists. Also, now the Taiwan Biodiversity Network has accumulated more than 7.8 million bird observation records. So it's quite fantastic how much citizen science data there is in Taiwan regarding birds and their numbers. So as we're talking about citizen science now, I just wanted to recognize some of the citizen science projects which are going on in Taiwan for birds. The first one is the Breeding Bird Survey, which looks at common birds and breeding species in Taiwan. There's MAPS, which also looks at breeding birds. The New Year's Bird Count Taiwan actually looks at wintering avifauna, and I'll discuss that a bit later. Then there's eBird Taiwan, which I had mentioned previously. And then for individual species, there are also certain citizen science projects, such as the Lapwing Survey Yunlin, which does northern lapwings, the Pheasanttail jacana survey in Tainan, and the black-faced spoonbill, which is actually a national census which is done in January every year in line with the International Black-faced Spoonbill Census. So there's a number of citizen science projects going on for birds in Taiwan, and many of these, about all of these, have actually gotten their information as input for the State of Taiwan Birds Report. So what does the State of Taiwan Birds 2020 say? Well, some basic facts are that 674 bird species occur in Taiwan, and 52 of those threatened bird species are in Taiwan. There are 29 species of breeding bird whose numbers have declined over the years, and 15 migratory water bird species whose numbers have declined. Now, how did we break up the State of Taiwan birds? Well, we broke it up into 3 different sections. The first looked at the status and trends of Taiwan's birds, the second looked specifically at certain bird species, and the third looked at major conservation issues. So this is a visualization of the red list of the birds of Taiwan. It starts with endemic species and goes in a clockwise formation towards summer visitors. As you could see, it highlights all the different species which technically can occur in Taiwan, and is important to NGOs as well as to government or any stakeholder that's looking to better understand conservation status of species and where the threats are. So now we're just going to go through the different topics that are in the State of Taiwan Birds. So if it has a CS under it, then that actually means that the topic is influenced by data from citizen science projects. So breeding birds, migratory water birds, migratory raptors, and breeding terns. 3 out of the 4 of these use citizen science data in creating the report information. So from the status and trends of Taiwan's bird section, we have this, which is on breeding birds, and it's based on the data from the Breeding Bird Survey Taiwan. Now, the BBS Taiwan began in 2009, and its goal is to look at the status and trends of common birds, and their motto is keeping common birds common. They're up to looking at about 160 different species now, and actually in the 2020 report here, they looked at 97 different species in order to see how their populations were doing as a sort of an index. And the results were that there was no major fluctuations and that the populations were stable, which is positive. The section on migratory water birds is based off of the data from the Taiwan New Year's bird count. It's based off of this NYBC Taiwan data that we now know that there are 3 migratory bird hotspots on Taiwan proper, as well as the status and trends of Taiwan's wintering avifauna. And so now we have the status and trends of specific bird species. Again, if you see the CS underneath the name, then that means that citizen science data was used in creating this portion. So we had 9 different species that we looked at: black-faced spoonbill, Chinese crested tern, black kite, pheasanttail jacana, fairy pitta, northern lapwing, russet sparrow, Australasian grass owl, and the mountain hawk eagle. And here we just have a look at the black-faced spoonbill section where we discuss the conservation efforts in Taiwan for the black-faced spoonbill as well as the current and ongoing research. So these are the numbers from the, at that point, black-faced spoonbill census, and on the right side you could see where the population distribution was at that time, until that time. So lastly, we talked about major conservation issues. So this includes climate change, invasive bird species, wetland loss and degradation, poisoning crisis, wild bird trade, and seabird bycatch. So here's an example from the major conservation issues section, which is seabird bycatch. And so seabird bycatch is a major issue globally, and actually Taiwan, as a major fishing nation, has a responsibility, as do all fishing nations, to go ahead and mitigate against the incidental bycatch of seabirds. We have been working with the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds on this topic here at TWBF, and as an example of this, you can see in the bottom left was a international workshop to discuss one of the major bycatch mitigation measures, used by Taiwanese fishermen, which is called the bird scaring line. So here you can see that we tried to make the State of Taiwan birds as open and accessible to everyone as possible. So we published it in both English and Chinese. So here you could actually see we also created a State of Taiwan Birds report website, and it has the State of Taiwan Birds report that's available for download for anybody with interest. It's on our TWBF website. So looking towards the future, we are hoping that we will be able to create a State of Taiwan Birds report every 2 years. So that means that another one should be coming out this year. And in that new report, we will do updates on previous topics, but then also address certain topics we weren't able to reach in the last edition. And so I'll share with you all some of the new topics in a moment. So for the 2022 State of Taiwan Birds report, we plan under the trajectories for groups to add a forest bird index as well as a farmland bird index. For trajectories for species, a discussion of critically endangered vagrants who find their way to Taiwan. The issue section will be quite different, with topics including roadkill, window collision, solar panels, wind turbines, an introduced bird indicator, mudflat loss, and farmland loss. And then lastly, there will be more of a discussion about the citizen science work and open data which take place in Taiwan. And once again, just to go and show how many people and organizations were involved in the creation of the State of Taiwan's birds, it's quite astounding. You have so many people from so many different groups who were involved in the process, aside from the thousands of citizen scientists who contributed as well. And of course, it wouldn't be possible without the sponsorship of the Forestry Bureau, Council of Agriculture at the Executive Yuan. So this concludes my presentation about the development of the State of Taiwan Birds report. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to contact me. And also thank you again to the IOU for this opportunity today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.